Heather Murtry just called to let us know that Walnut Creek Presbyterian is hosting a gospel choir service in honor of Black History Month, the afternoon of Sunday, February 26th. They're at 1801 Lacassie. We're asking members of our Interfaith Council to let us know when the different MLK services will be around the county so that we can publicize them on our website. Rather than hosting a service ourselves, we're encouraging people to go to services led by communities of color that day and be ready to share what it was like at their particular the one that they attended. There are some volunteer opportunities to join Social Justice Alliance, among other folks. The Concord United Methodist is hosting a conversation on the human trafficking situation going on in the county on January 21st, 10 a.m. to 2:30 at Contra Costa United Methodist Church. For more information, contact Reverend Marie. These are the upcoming eye care events. West County and Central County, February 11th and March 12th, with the Bay Area Rescue Mission and White Pony Express. Our Meaningful Mondays programs will next be meeting on February 6th. We'll be discussing chapters 3 and 4. This is a great new book, Sufism, A Bridge Between Religions, and Reza Sharif Zadeh is our leader for our group. There's links for it in the agenda. We're still welcoming folks into our space.
Will, do we have two readers for the covenant?
We don't yet. If you'd like to assign some, that would be great.
Do we have any volunteers for the folks that are here that would like to read? Carolyn, could you do it? Carolyn Peters?
I'd be happy to. What do I read?
It'll be on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's fine.
Yeah, first two paragraphs. So, and
Right.
how about
I can do the rest also.
Great. That'd be great, Reza. Thank you.
I have your websites prepped, Kate. Well, we're past our time, so Diane, go ahead and let's kick off our meeting.
Well, welcome everyone to the 2023 first meeting of the year. Happy New Year to all of you. Hope you received, and if you did not, please let us know, the minutes and all the information and the agenda. Would you like to do land acknowledgement first or approve the minutes, Will?
Approve the minutes, please.
Can we, if you had a chance to look at the minutes, which were put together, please, if you have a chance to at least look at the minutes to make sure your name is included in the participation. First of all, is there any corrections? Because if so, we can go in and fix those after the meeting. Did anyone have any corrections on there?
Carolyn, was it you that had a couple that did you email them in or something? I saw an email from somebody this morning and now I can't remember who it was.
No, it wasn't me.
I'll check the emails, Will, or if you can make sure to send that to me, I'll fix it.
Okay.
Okay. Otherwise, do we have an approval for December 22 meeting? All in favor? Just raise your hand in the reactions button, or on Zoom like this, if you can. Okay, I'm just going to assume it's from what I can tell, it looks like it's approved. Going on, do you want to do the land acknowledgement? Well,
Yes. Welcome, siblings. So great to be with you today. As we acknowledge the lands on which we work, serve, and play, we remember the first inhabitants of these lands are Chochenyo Ohlone, Karkan Ohlone, Bamiwak, and Tachiyokut's siblings. All have a different relationship with the highest peak in our region. We call Mount D, but many of them call Tuishtak, or there's different names for each of these different groups. And one of the great things that we can do as we are learning about different indigenous peoples around the world, as we try to learn more about what's going on here as well. So this month, let us learn more about the Indigenous Australians and their diversity. I think they're less and less wanting to be called Aboriginal. There's kind of an understanding that it's hard to get away from that term because it's been used for so long. But Indigenous Australians are the original and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia, descended from groups that existed in Australia and the surrounding islands prior to European colonization. The earliest definite human remains found in Australia are those of Mungo Man, which have been dated at about 40,000 years old, although the time of arrival of the first Indigenous Australians is a matter of debate among researchers, with estimates including thermoluminescence dating to between 61,000 and 52,000 years ago, as well as a suggestion of up to 125,000 years ago. There's great diversity among different indigenous peoples and societies in Australia, each with its own mixture of cultures, customs, and languages. In present-day Australia, these groups are further divided into local communities. At the time of initial European settlement, over 250 languages were spoken. It is currently estimated that 120 to 145 of these remain in use, but only 13 of these are not considered endangered. Indigenous Australian people today mostly speak English, with Aboriginal phrases and words being added to create Australian Aboriginal English, which also has a tangible influence on Indigenous languages in the phonology and grammatical structure. The population of Indigenous Australians at the time of permanent European settlement has been estimated between 318,000 and 1 million, with the distribution being similar to that of the current Australian population, with the majority living in the southeast, centered along the Murray River. Indigenous Australians teach us that reality is a dream or illusion. Within Aboriginal belief systems, a formative epoch known as the Dreamtime stretches back into the distant past, when the creator ancestors known as the First Peoples traveled across the land, creating and naming as they went. Indigenous Australia's oral traditions and religious values are based upon reverence for the land and a belief in this dreamtime. The dreaming is at once both the ancient time of creation and the present-day reality of dreaming. There were a great many different groups, each with its own individual culture, belief structure, and language. These cultures overlapped to a greater or lesser extent and evolved over time. Major ancestral spirits include the rainbow serpent, Bayime, Dirawang, and Bunjul. Traditional healers, known as the Ngangkari in the western desert areas of central Australia, were highly respected men and women who were not only acted as healers or doctors, but were generally also custodians of important dreamtime studies. Here's the first portion of the covenant. Who was reading this?
Carolyn.
Please go ahead.
In solidarity with one another, we affirm our dialogue is an interfaith dialogue. We all have different communication styles and varying views. We commit to be in dialogue with respect for all, expanding listening to hear multiple points of views.
We realize that we are responsible for the growth of I4C, and each of us shares a duty to interfaith growth. The governing boards provides leadership, and the elected council works toward progress and the fulfillment of I4C goals as we grow.
We recognize that we are imbued with interfaith responsibility. As such, we commit to hold ourselves and each other accountable to merit that trust. Respect for the diverse traditions, beliefs, and spiritual paths of all those we encounter. Hold ourselves to the highest ethical standards and accountable to our communities and to I4C.
Our shared time together is interfaith time. We commit to honoring the start and the end times each time we meet.
Thank you. And now we're going to start with Kate Lone Newark and for her opening faith reflection.
Good morning. Let's see, I was asked to reflect on UUism, and I joined the UU church here a dozen years ago. I actually saw it on the way to a birthday party with my daughter, and it was a Saturday night when we went back by. We went up Walnut, came back by, and I kind of circled the parking lot. Nobody was there, and then I studied it for about 2 or 3 months. Tried to get my husband engaged. He was not interested. He was a confirmed Catholic, but he's basically non-religious at this time. And but I did get me and my daughter involved, and she was 4 at that time. And one of the main people asked, what do UUs believe? And of course, that doesn't lend itself to a very short elevator speech, but if you scroll down just a little bit, there's our 7 principles, which many people are familiar with, and they are the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement of spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations, the goal of a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all, a respect for the interdependent web of all existence. And that 8th principle there, in regards to dismantling racism and other oppressions, is actually not a UUA principle yet, but it's been adopted by, I think, over 200 congregations on a grassroots level. Started by Reverend Paula Cole Jones. It was first introduced at the General Gathering in 2017, but it wasn't adopted at that time. So instead it became a grassroots effort. And our congregation in Mount Diablo and Walnut Creek just accepted it like 2 months ago, after about a year of discernment. We also traditionally have these 6 sources from which we gather our wisdom and our spirituality, and they are the direct experience of the transcending of mystery and wonder, that's of the individual, the words and deeds of prophetic women and men, wisdom from the world's religions, and especially Jewish and Christian teachings, humanist teachings, and then also earth-centered traditions. And so I sort of latched on that early as perhaps being native, but also, of course, pagan. So these principles and religion, or these principles and sources, are actually under review right now. And it's for the first time since 1987 that they've come under review. I think it's part of our bylaws that they happen every 20 years. It's been like 35 years. So if you go to the next site, they've actually just released in the last several months sort of a first draft. And again, very democratic, years-long process in discernment with everybody who wants to be in discernment at the congregational level. Do you have the other one, Will? You looking it up? It's the second one I sent you. So if you go to the top of that, the purposes, and you'll see that it's basically founded in our liberating love. So that's at the base of all of it. And then it has its own covenant. Love binds us together. If you scroll down just a little bit, you can see that love is at the center of everything. And they've come up with these 6 now values, right? And so the values, if you scroll a little bit, are justice. And these are in no particular order. That's why the graphic is in a circle, right? We work to be a diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all people thrive. So each one of these, you'll see there's a value and then there's a covenant. So there's a value and then there's an action. So the action is we covenant to dismantle racism and all its forms of oppression within individuals and our institutions. Generosity, we cultivate a spirit of gratitude and hope. We covenant to freely share our faith, presence, and resources. Compassionate generosity connects us to one another in relationship with mutuality. Evolution, we adapt to the changing world. We covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Evolution is fundamental to the life of our Unitarian Universal heritages and never complete and never perfect. So that's again why we are revising our principles. Pluralism, we celebrate that we're all sacred beings, diverse in culture, theology, and experience. We covenant to learn from one another and openly explore the depth and breadth of our many wisdoms. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. Equity, we declare that every person has the right to flourish with dignity and worthiness. We covenant to use our time, wisdom, attention, and money to build and sustain a fully inclusive and accessible community of communities. Interdependence, there's interdependence again, brought forward from our old values. We honored the sacred interdependent web of all existence, and that includes our planet and all the beings on our planet. With humility, we understand our place in the web. We covenant to care for and respect the earth and all beings by fostering relationships of mutuality. We work to repair the bonds we have broken. So you can see some similarities to the old principles and you can see some new things have been added. So inspirations right there at the top is what was formerly the 6 sources. So now they've just kind of brought it down to 2 sentences. We're inspired by the full breadth of sacred understandings as experienced by humanity. Some people, I can tell you, are not happy that the 6 sources are no longer listed. And we do include inclusion and freedom of belief as more core values of UUism. Again, this is a draft and it's gone through the congregations, and I went to a meeting where we submitted individually our thoughts on it. It'll change again, but this is the first draft that was brought by a commission that was a task force that was appointed, I think, 1.5 years, 2 years ago to start working on this. So a very democratic process. And it just shows kind of like the evolution of, the evolution of our beliefs, our core values, but also just in how we express them. So that's kind of, again, you can't give somebody like a 2-minute elevator speech, but that's kind of what UUs tend to agree on is our principles and our sources.
It looks like you're influenced by Buddhism as well. Would
Yes.
that be fair? Or is that more of a West Coast thing?
Oh, well, I don't know, because I'm a West Coast UU. But yeah, no, I think it's founded and it's foundational. And of course, meditation. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That was very succinct. So you can.
I had 5 minutes.
That was very good. It's good to know. Love to, maybe we could go sometime to see one of your, make a trip to see one of your sermons. Services. That would be great.
Yes, and they are all online too, and they're all broadcast live as well. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
And Reverend Leslie there is a former chair of our council.
Great, that would be good.
And Reverend Dave Salmons, their emeritus pastor, was one of the ones, I think he was one of our first Interfaith chairs.
Yes.
I find a lot of crossover in the DOC with you. So interesting. Okay. Christine, development Christine Nadeau is our development chair, if you didn't know that. So if you have any ideas on how we could more branch out and have communications, etc., please talk to her. We could use more people in the development committee. But here she is. Go
Thank you,
for it.
Diane. Thank you. So I'm Christine Nadeau from Christ the Lord Episcopal Church in Pinole. And you might notice that it says development, grants, and fundraising, because in order to spread the word, we need to have the wherewithal to do so. So Happy New Year to everyone and hello to everyone. And Kate, I especially want to thank you because that was a perfect lead in for what we try to do with development. In spreading the word and in sharing with each other what we do. So we had a $20,000 matching grant that was met in December, and resulting in a total for 2022 of $60,000 from $30,000 of matching grants, which will be used to fund our ongoing operations. A huge thanks to the matching grant donors and to all who donated to meet the match. We plan to have additional matching grant campaigns in 2023. And if you know of any donors who would like to contribute in this way, please let us know. Please also remember that your unrestricted congregational and personal donations can be applied to this type of matching grant. So we very much depend on those for our ongoing operations. And again, welcome to our new EC members. We're actively pursuing grants from local organizations, as there is an abundance of funding available for the types of projects that the Interfaith Council generates and supports. We have a lot of support from the county, for instance, the local Lesher Foundation, and we're pursuing other grants too. So if any of you work for or belong to any organizations which have charitable foundations, we would be happy to contact them with your assistance. We continue to review grant opportunities. So if you have any ideas or leads, or most especially experience or interest in grant application or fundraising, please contact either me or Greg Kremenliev, Will, Diane, or David Longhurst. We also depend on our current and new elected council members to encourage active Interfaith Council membership and participation by identifying 5 nearby congregations to contact. Elected council member contact lists are either attached or will be sent out soon. And remember that if you have any questions or ideas, that you can contact governing board members or any elected council members. And I was so happy to see Will review some of the highlights that are included in the agenda, but naturally we've got people coming in late. And so I highly encourage you to review the agenda at each council meeting, because in there is so much information, volunteer opportunities, and a lot to, as Mary Oliver would say, a lot to pay attention, be astonished, and tell someone about it. And I think there's a lot to be astonished about in terms of what we are accomplishing. So thank you very much.
Well said, Christine. Thank you. Okay. And now we have the privilege of having Father Tom continue his orientation for us that he started last meeting. So
Father Tom sent us a document that I was able to send to some, but probably didn't make it to all. So if you did not receive that document yet in your inbox, could you just raise your hand and I'll try to send it on. Okay. Carolyn and Cynthia, thank you. Lead on, Father Tom. I got you too, Greg.
Okay, thank you. Well, blessings, everyone. Good morning. It's my blessing to be with you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Good. Well, again, thank you for the opportunity to share this with you. I thought it would be good if we spent a few moments going back over some of the material that I shared with you the last time that we met. I'm sorry about this throat of mine. I hope it clears up as we go along. Today, what I think is most important for us to do is to begin to discern what direction we as individuals would like to move in relationship to the Interfaith Council and the work and the mission of the council. When we get to the conclusion of this, I will ask you to move in two directions. One, when you look at what it is that the council is involved in, what attracts you and what are you willing to commit yourself to? But also, perhaps, what is more important, as you look at the work of the council, is there anything that you feel yourself called to that's not on that list? What's really important for the vitality of the Interfaith Council or any interfaith organization is that it does not enter into a box. This is what we've done. This is what we do. And any new members to come to us, this is what we've done, and this is what you will do. What is critically important is that the genius, the uniqueness, the beauty and the splendor of the individual people who come to the council bring their life experience, their intelligence, and their genius, and perhaps take us beyond the limits that we might have imposed upon ourselves. It is not infrequent in my own life that I think I have an insight and a breakthrough, and I say, oh my, I have arrived. I have arrived at the wisdom from which there's nowhere to go from here. I am at the top of the mountain. Then somebody comes into my life and says something, and I go, oh dear, I never heard of that before. That touches my life deeply. That opens up doors and perspectives I never knew. Now, we can do this by reading books. We can do this by paying attention to the religions of the world and the philosophies of the world. But one of the most important ways to expand our horizons, to expand our experience of life, is to meet another person. As we pointed out to you before, religions cannot meet. Christianity cannot go to lunch with Buddhism. They cannot break into small groups and report back. They can't even faith share. Only individual people can testify to the journey of their soul and the wisdom of their tradition. So if 100 people had something to say about the faith tradition from which they came, we would then appreciate the depth of that faith tradition in ways we never imagined before. What we like to say in this work is, you need to meet the people you love to speak about. And the same thing is true with the religious traditions. We need to meet the people in the religious tradition that we may be attracted to or love. So, for example, I can be very much impressed with a religious tradition as long as I never meet anybody in the tradition. Catholicism, for example, looks very beautiful on paper. It's very, very well organized. It has its creeds and its beliefs and its liturgies. But then if you go out and you meet very, very real Catholic people, you begin to see that the faith takes on dimensions that are influenced by the reality of a person's life. And so what may be a doctrine on paper is a way of life in someone's actual living. A couple of weeks ago, a very, very close friend of mine, his son died of suicide. I was one of the presiders at the funeral. I recite the prayer, and I now say the prayer from my heart, because this is the family that I know and a young man that I care about. When I say the prayer, I'm not simply reading it out of a book. I'm not even saying the prayer, I'm praying the prayer. And there's a lot of difference between saying it and praying it. There's a lot of difference between having it and being it. May the angels take you into paradise. May the martyrs come and welcome you and take you to the holy city. Where Lazarus is poor no longer, may you have rest in eternal life. That takes on a personal dimension. And it's that personal dimension that's crucial. Now, don't get me wrong. The academic, abstract, philosophical study of the traditions of the world is essential. There's much to be learned and much to be had. But the genius of the Interfaith Council, of this particular Interfaith Council of Contra Costa County, is that it affords us the opportunity to meet very, very real people in the very, very real world. Now, my dear friends, before we're concerned about our outreach, those who are in prison, those who are houseless, those who are hungry, those who are the victims and the objects of injustice, we have each other. And so in those opening of our meetings, when we have the faith reflection, there was a time I remember when the faith reflection was considered digging into the time. Maybe if we kept the faith reflection under control, we would have more time for the business. But over the years, what we've learned is that the faith experience is our business. Listen to what we heard this morning from Kate. I almost fell on the floor when she said this. I think I know this, but when she said this, it touched my heart. Love is the center of everything. That's why we may hear something from another tradition that we can identify with deeply, but we hear it as if for the first time. Love is the center of everything. I would like to think that in this time we have together, perhaps in this year, that what all of us are doing who are in this meeting today is that we will, if you forgive me for putting it this way, we're falling in love with each other. Not necessarily with our faith traditions, our philosophies, our abstractions, but with the reality of one another. I'm sure that if I met one of you walking down the street, there would be an encounter there that would touch my heart and change my life. That's why the Interfaith Council is not just simply a service agency. In these meetings, we are experiencing the depth of what it is to be an interfaith community. That's why it says in our charter, our way of thinking, our covenant, ours is an interfaith meeting. We are practicing in the here and now of our life what it is to be interfaith people. We're not saying that someday in the future we might become interfaith sensitive. We have that interfaith sensitivity in the gathering we have right here, right now. We also pointed out to you so far that there are 4 ways to dialogue. And I would like to think that the 4 ways of dialogue are also 4 ways of practicing what I call interfaith spirituality. 1, there is the dialogue of life. By the dialogue of life, what you mean is that we encounter very, very real people from the faith traditions of the world, and also people who have unique ways of living in daily life. Going to the gasoline station, going to the grocery store, going to the physician, doing our work. You and I, then, in these so-called ordinary affairs of our lives, have a heightened sense of the diversity that is around us. We can open up a door to a store for another person and carry on a 2-minute conversation. In those moments, we can break prejudice, fears, and stereotypes and enter into the beauty of another person's presence. So in the ordinary affairs of life, what you don't want to do is this. I belong to the Interfaith Council. We meet once a month. And when we meet once a month, I am an interfaith person. I practice interfaith spirituality in all the dimensions of my life. It is my way of being. It is the sensitivity of my heart. A couple of years ago, because I'm getting older, my physician said, you need to go to a cardiologist. I said, okay. So I go to a cardiologist. The cardiologist walks into the room, and this is what he says. Hello, my name is Krishna. I said, of course it is. I have a cardiologist named Krishna. He's explaining to me the chambers of the heart, how the blood works, what happens when you get old. Meanwhile, I'm having a mystical experience. I'm being probed by Krishna. He starts testifying to Krishna. I say I know who he is, the playful one in my soul. I no longer have any heart issues that I know of, but my heart longs to go visit Krishna. In the ordinary affairs of life, Lord knows what happens when I go to the dentist next week. The heightened sense of sensitivity about what's unfolding in life. I ask you the question to probe. As you look at your life as it is, as you look at your life as you live it, what interfaith sensitivities are emerging? What do you remember that touches your mind, your heart, and your soul? The second form of dialogue, which is also a second way of being interfaith sensitive and alert, is what we call the dialogue of action in our deeds. This is when people from different faith traditions come together to be of concern for other people. Now, my dear friend, that has emerged in our lifetime. Isn't it amazing? We come together from different traditions. And let's face it, in the real world, some of these traditions have a history of being hostile to each other. There are people today in this room who 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago wouldn't be caught dead together. We would have heard things about one another that would stereotype us and make us afraid of one another. And today we find ourselves coming together, and oftentimes coming together to care about people we haven't met. The poor, the imprisoned, the sick, the dying, the victims of injustice. It is amazing. It is heart-touching. The third form of dialogue is the dialogue of theological exchange. And oftentimes this has been that professionals from our various faith traditions come together in order to talk about what they might have in common or how they might bridge the gap of doctrinal and belief differences.
And I wouldn't
I'll never,
discount that, Father Tom, because I think that's really, in some ways, those professional dialogues have actually helped bring some greater peace between Protestants and Catholics since the ecumenical movement in the
yes,
60s and 50s. And, you know, I was reminded yesterday that some of the biggest differences between different Christian groups since the Protestant Reformation 500 years ago is all around communion and polity. And since we're actually making some headway on communion and polity and baptism, we've made more headway on baptism than communion. It's actually decreased a lot of the vitriol between a lot of the different groups.
that's what I thought I was saying. That the coming together with theological differences between the professionals was crucial. And certainly in the Catholic Church, with the coming of the Second Vatican Council, that was the major breakthrough, was to talk to people we like to talk about. So the coming together of the professionals, the coming together of those with the backgrounds. What was interesting to me was I was once dealing with a group of people who didn't have professional backgrounds. And what I discovered, and this is what I discovered about the sophisticated theological studies, is that oftentimes theologians study what real people in the real world are dealing with. So that separation between the academic and the real is no longer sustainable. We have to understand that we all bring our various gifts to the table. It's a matter of reconciliation and understanding and appreciation. So let's no longer be afraid of the intellectual and the academic. For me, it's come down this way. I've long heard people say, I have to get out of my head and into my heart. But I honestly believe that I have to put my heart and my head together. Let me think about what I feel. Let me feel about what I think. Let me bring to the table the totality of my gifts, everything about me as a person. The fourth form of dialogue, or the fourth form of interfaith expression, is called the dialogue of religious experience. That is when actual people share with one another what their actual experiences happen to be. Now, notice oftentimes what happens in the faith reflection by which our meetings begin. There is information about the tradition from which the person comes, but oftentimes there's a story that makes that tradition autobiographical and real to that individual person. And to that person, we can identify deeply. So the four forms of dialogue are not contradictory to one another or in conflict. What do I glean from my life experience? What happens when we work together? When we come together from different faith traditions in the dialogue of action and work, in our common concern for another person, we can meet each other. The dialogue of theological exchange. What happens when we reflect honestly, sincerely, openly, professionally, and even academically and intellectually about the stances we take within the world in relationship to faith? And finally, share with one another our experiences of life. Who is God to you? What did Jesus mean to you? What happens when you study the Quran? To hear that come from another person's life experience is heartwarming, touching, challenging, and transformative. Several questions emerge as we do this work. One, who is involved? Here's one of the sad things that can happen. You and I can come together in the Interfaith Council. We can work together. We can have outreach and we can support the mission. And never get to know each other. Never meet. Never have those conversations by which I know who is here. Who am I meeting? Second question. As we look at our gathering, who's not here? Who do we need to outreach to? Who do we need to meet? This is ongoing. So we encourage you at every opportunity you have to have refreshments together, lunch, to meet, to dialogue with each other as individuals. The work of the council could be enhanced. Our outreach to the world could become deep. The more you and I get to know each other, who is involved. I heard you say something in the faith experience, the faith sharing. Do you have a few moments where we can speak? I would like to get to know you more. It touched my heart. You and I might discover who's not at the table. Who do we need to invite? Another question that emerges, why are we here? What are we doing? What is our purpose? And finally, how might we journey together? Before we go into our dialogue, I would like to go back to our covenant and again look at 4 dimensions of the covenant before we enter into conversation today. The covenant uses the word solidarity. We are in solidarity with each other. Solidarity is not simply a fact. It is something we work toward. In our conversations one with another, even if we were to debate, we are questioned to solidarity. Solidarity does not mean we conform to each other. It means that my uniqueness can flourish in the solidarity of this community. Sometimes in life, it has been my experience that I had to conform and submit in order to be myself. But what I love about the work of the council and what I love about our meetings is I can be my authentic self with you. Our coming together empowers me to be me. So solidarity, we're there for each other. We can do together what no one of us can do alone. 2, our dialogue is an interfaith dialogue. Now here we might be careful because I'm not simply representing a faith tradition, and I might do that. I might do everything in my power to represent a faith tradition, to take the authentic tradition of the teaching of the community from which I come and share that with you. But more importantly, I'm sharing with you my conviction as a person, my heart, my soul, and my life experience. Let's pause at that moment and begin to speak. You have heard me use, and you probably have heard over and over again, the word interfaith. My dear friends, what on earth does that word mean? As I surveyed the literature, different communities, different academic people, people in the field have very, very different ways of exploring the word interfaith. Before we go on asking ourselves, do you want to be part of the Interfaith Council? We need to ask you the question, what do you mean by the word interfaith? So I would like to give you a minute right now. Take a deep breath, center in your wisdom. As you look at that word interfaith, what does it mean to you? Take a minute. You might want to write down some notes. What does the word interfaith mean to you? Well, can I call upon you to call upon people to respond to that question?
Of course.
Let's stay together as a large group so we can hear one another's wisdom. What does the word interfaith mean to you?
Respect.
Raisa, go ahead and unmute yourself. And then Ginny.
Beauty of each person being with different faiths.
Ginny.
One God, one religion, one humanity, working together for peace and love.
Greg?
Listen and share.
Some of you have found the little reaction button down there where you can raise your hand kind of like this. It moves you to the top of the list, so it's easier for me to call on you. So if I've missed you, you can raise your hand this way as well, or you can unmute and go ahead and speak.
Love the sharing of faith and stories and approaching each other with open minds and hearts.
Leonard, then Ben.
Respect for others and their beliefs.
It means sharing our insights, our traditions, our wisdoms, and welcoming the others' wisdoms, traditions, and insights.
Ben, then Dale.
I love everybody who's saying respect. I also want to say humility.
Thank you. Dale?
Yeah, I was going to say different faith traditions, people, believers that come together to work, to play, to learn, to share with one another.
Amelia?
I just found this quote. It says, "We need a kind of dialogue that can harness the power of religion to help humanity tackle its most challenging problems."
Ooh, say that again, Amelia.
We need a kind of dialogue that can harness the power of religion to help humanity tackle its most challenging problems.
Very good.
Is there a source for that?
It's by Gerald Filson, and I will actually send you the link to this article in the chat.
Thank you. I came up with the word intersections. Anyone else have one to share? Yeah, Cynthia.
Well, mine is certainly a lot like everyone else's, but the idea of just coming together to get to know each other, and in a way that we may not be doing on our own, but a group like this, the purpose is to exchange and interact and get to know each other.
Did I miss anyone? Diane, then Sharon?
Interfaith to me is different ways of exploring this world, exploring how we exist on a spiritual level with one another, what it is that keeps us alive, motivated, connected, supported, engaged, and give meaning.
Sharon?
I had some similar things, but non-judgmental respect for the similarities and the differences. I think a lot of times we look to what we have in common and similarities, but I often am fascinated by the differences, and we need to respect those as well.
Maybe even celebrating the differences. Babak, yes. Just unmute yourself there, I can't hear you.
I think to me, when I look at the word interfaith, the first thing that comes to mind is different. We have different faiths. So right away, it means I'm coming here with acknowledgement and respect. You, my brother, have a different faith. You have a different system. But I want to be with you because I truly believe that it's this diversity, this unity in this diversity that makes us who we are. That's why I'm here.
Did I miss anyone else?
Okay, thank you very much, Will. I appreciate that. If you could hold on. Let me ask another question. Did anybody hear anybody say anything that either confirmed what you believe and think, or challenged it, or added, or attracted you, or touched your heart?
Can you say that one more time for us?
As you were listening to one another, did you hear anything that affirmed what you believe and think about the word interfaith, or challenged and developed what you think and believe about the word interfaith? Well, could you direct us again?
I believed everything that I heard. even though it was totally opposite of what I said. I still believe it, all of it.
Can you tell us more about that? I'm fascinated.
Well, when I was talking about one God, one religion, one humanity, I may have sounded like John Lennon. And I did include working together for peace and love, but I think it opened me up when we talked about humility and Amelia's quote from Gerald Wilson about dialogue and challenging problems of today, which we all have to learn to communicate about. And also the respect for differences and celebrating different cultures and different traditions, I think is really important. And acknowledging unity and diversity, which Babak touched on. And Ben talking about humility is all the virtues that we all try to acquire as we're all made in the image of God.
Can you say more about unity and diversity? Because I think we hear that more from Baha'is than anyone else. What do you mean when you say unity and diversity? Because that's kind of central for you as Baha'is.
Yes, well, it's kind of what we're talking about, like what let's see, who was talking first today about Unitarian faith?
Kate.
Kate, yeah. Kate was talking about the new addition to the bylaws in the Unitarian Church and building a beloved community. And this is something, we just had a world conference in the Baha'i faith that was based on beloved community and joining together of all those, who are searching for spiritual truths and helping others find a path to consultation. We prefer to use consultation and dialogue instead of arguing or having negative feelings for other people. Be open to listening to everyone and to embracing everyone.
Thank you. Then Greg and Cindy. Cindy, please introduce yourself when you get a chance. Greg?
Yeah, to begin with, everything I heard from each of you affirmed and deepened my understanding and belief in interfaith. And two things that jumped out to me were compassion and justice, or perhaps you could call it social justice. And those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Cindy, please introduce
Hi.
yourself.
Yeah, my name is Cindy Billsborough. I'm the communication director for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the Walnut Creek area. And I'm new to the Interfaith Council. I just wanted to say that initially I was attracted to the council because I thought, well, if we are combining the efforts of a number of faith communities, how much good can we do in the world? And so I'm thinking doing more of the dialogue of action is where I was coming from, but it's so much more. And I really appreciate Father Tom's comments today about how it can, not only are we going to be doing things that will help our communities, but also ourselves individually, and broaden our horizons, reaching outside of ourselves and embracing others and people of other faiths. And I really appreciate that. And I've been very touched today. Thank you.
Yeah, Ben, then Dennis.
Yeah, one of the words that struck me was celebrate. that was from you, Will, that I think it was from you, that coming together and not only recognize and respect, but celebrate everybody else's beliefs and joy, and being the beingness, just being here together and acknowledging each other. So to me, that's it's very important that. And it's actually this whole, the Interfaith Council itself is an expression of my Baha'i beliefs. There's this quote from, I forget whether it's Abdul Baha or Baha'u'llah, let all the religious, I'm going to paraphrase, let all the religious leaders in the world come together and prescribe a remedy for all the ills of humanity. So, come together and do this. And this is what we're doing.
Dennis?
The thing that struck me in our dialogue and in Father Tom's comments are the idea of the stories, to get to know the stories of people and how they came to their beliefs and how they, because each of us is different, even though we might be in the same religious community and tradition. How we approach that and how we deal with it is different. And I think, hearing other people's stories is just so important. And the second thing is, I think, for the most part, the group here is very much of the same thinking. Obviously our backgrounds are different, our culture is different, but generally, I think our openness is there. But as someone had said, we have to reach out, and I think it was Father Tom, we have to reach out to others who aren't as open as us, and to be able to listen to them and where they came from and what their beliefs are and how did they get to where they are. And that's truly interfaith, and it may be very difficult work and sometimes very frustrating work, but I think it has to be part of who we are.
Diane?
I was intrigued by Bob Eck's idea of coming from the difference and coming to meet our differences in his respective of coming from the differences. Where with Ginny, I think I was on the level of we're all having the common humanity and coming down to meet the differences. So I liked that perspective. I enjoyed that. It was totally different than what I was thinking as well.
Reza? And then Babak?
One of the words that really instruct me and has been instructing me is interfaith growth. I mean, we all are here to grow, to change. And in reality, I come from an environment that I was kind of under the impression we are the best, the most complete faith, etc., etc. I had the opportunity to come here and I see our fellow Christians. We are the only way. Kind of impacts me when I was very young. What is going on? Who is right? So that per se, it was interfaith interaction between myself and a fellow friend, during the college year. So that interfaith growth is one of the most essential part of interfaith dialogues, interfaith groups, as we all are here. And this is what I think and what I see is one of the essential part of, having a grace, of teachings of Father Tom, all of us, to allow us to grow, to become higher than what we are.
Babak?
Thank you. Thank you, Reza, for that comment. I think that just to pick up on the one last thing that you said was this growth idea. And I think maybe I can weave it into the comment about the unity in diversity. It's some kind of, I think I get a sense that it's some struggle still as to what it really means. So when I look out my window now, after all this rain, things are getting green. So when I look out there, there's lots of different things that are green. And they're all green, and they're all enjoying the rain that it came. So I don't have just one kind of grass or one kind of bush. They're all there. And then when I look further out, there's all kinds of trees. And they're all very different, but they're all trees. And so that's, to me, what unity in diversity means, is to recognize that it's not the same. It's the beautiful garden is not all roses. It's not all the same color flowers. We need all the pieces. We need all the colors to make this messy world that we live in. So that, to me, is what unity in diversity means. We all come together. We're all different. But what, like Father Bonacci was saying earlier, when we come together, the bit about the working together, when we come together and we focus on helping another person, then it's like me and this other faith community that are very different. We are united at that moment. We are very diverse, but we are also united in our diversity as we do the work that we are focusing on. This is a work that we are focusing on, this interfaith dialogue. And then when we do service, or when we do other kinds of work over the committees of this. So that, to me, is an explanation, again, of what is unity in diversity. Unity in diversity is a world. The world is one big united place, and at the same time, it's extremely diverse. That is what, hopefully, I can explain better what that unity in diversity really means. It's us. Look on the screen. Everyone's a different color. Everyone has different amount of gray hair. But for this moment, we are united on this same cause. This is unity in diversity.
Am I missing anyone?
Amelia.
Cynthia, and then Willie.
Okay. Well, I'm enjoying the words from each one of you. And one thing I want to mention is that so often when we meet different people, or people, who have very different ideas from ours, we're encouraged to look at the ways in which you can communicate, because you do have these maybe values in common or interests in common. And so you start by, or it's often suggested, you might start to interact by looking at the ways in which you are alike. But I really enjoy the emphasis today on looking at the differences too. Thank you.
Reverend Willie.
Yes, it's interesting for me. I'm Willie McDaniel. I'm new to the Interfaith Council. When Father Tom asked the question, I wrote down different religious expressions, and my words were deepened and affirmed by what was said throughout the discussion. But I certainly enlarged to the point where I now wrote down a respectful celebration of these different religious expressions. So it was interesting. I've been helped by what I've heard.
So great to get to know you, Reverend Willie.
Is that Amelia?
Who? Did I miss someone?
Yes.
Oh, Amelia.
Yeah, I was just going to add something. There's a really nice explanation that Kevin Locke does. He's a native, well, he passed away recently, but was a Native American artist and performer, and talked about the oneness of humanity and what that looks like. And he does this really beautiful hoop dance. And in the end, with all of his different hoops, he puts it together like a globe. And he says, everyone has a place at the table, and he puts these hoops together and they become this like round ball. But he says, if even one person is not at the table and he takes out one hoop, the whole thing falls apart. So as we were talking about unity and diversity, we really are learning through our dialogues and experiences and understanding and readings of different scripture, what that looks like. And there's something about it saying that it's through this emerging maturity that the principle of unity and diversity will find full expression. So it's a work in progress maturity of the human race that will find this understanding of unity and diversity. If we just look at the way the world has been set up, we all just we can't help it. Like, we all look different, we all come from different areas. But maybe God's plan is for us to, through that diversity, find elements to come together and find a full expression and build a kingdom that, as the Christian prayer says, build the heaven on earth. So I think that's part of our expression of unity and diversity that we're
Amelia, who was the name of the hoop dancer again?
Kevin Locke. I will find that video and send it to you, that he does that dance. It's really beautiful. It's maybe 12 minutes, kind of long, but at the end he does an explanation.
Well, maybe we can share it next month.
Sure.
You shared this quote in the chat room. Only I can see it, so I'll share it. The diversity of the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, where many different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord. If you meet those of a different race and color from yourself, do not mistrust them and withdraw yourself into a shell of conventionality, but rather be glad and show them kindness. Abdul Baha, who is he the son of
the son of Baha'u'llah, yeah, son of the prophet, founder of the faith. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Will you put that in the chat or send that?
I'm trying to copy it to make sure it gets in the notes here.
Send it to me and I'll put it in the minutes.
Good.
As well.
For some reason, it's not letting me copy it, even though it's sent to me. Isn't that weird? And then Ben sent a quote here. The great being saith, O ye children of men, the fundamental purpose animating the faith of God and his religion is to safeguard the interests and promote the unity of the human race, and to foster the spirit of love and fellowship amongst men. Suffer it not to become a source of dissension and discord, of hate and enmity. This is the straight path, the fixed and immovable foundation. Whatsoever is raised on this foundation, the changes and chances of the world can never impair its strength, nor will the revolution of countless centuries undermine its structure. Our hope is that the world's religious leaders and the rulers thereof will unitedly arise for the reformation of this age and the rehabilitation of its fortunes. Let them, after meditating on its needs, take counsel together and, through anxious and full deliberation, administer to a diseased and sorely afflicted world the remedy it requireth. Baha'u'llah, the Table of Maqsud.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll add these quotes to the minutes that I'm taking right now.
Thank you so much. Well, before we run out of time, I'd like to do a little summary here. So the next time, my dear friends, you hear the word interfaith, you can jump into the ocean of the wisdom we just shared with one another in the few minutes we had. So I would like to think that our sharing that began today will continue. So here's my suggestion. If you have some time when this meeting is over, maybe 10 or 15 minutes when the meeting's over or sometime today, to write down what it is you've heard, how it's moving your heart, Maybe you heard yourself for the first time today. Maybe there's a position you had, a thought that you had that was affirmed by another person. Here's where you see the genius of interfaith, what I call interfaith spirituality, working in a person's life. It's been said, I'm a better me because I met you. We grow together. So the growth is not always outward into the outreach in the world, but into the depth of our soul, because the most radical social thing we'll ever do is to become our authentic self. Because what we give to the world and what we give to one another is not our time, talent, and treasure, but ourselves. We heard something today that I think summarizes the passion that's in this room. One person put it this way: I agree with everything I heard in the room, even though it's the opposite of what I said. What it really meant was what I really meant to say, I heard in this room. No defense, no offense, but that respect, that humility, that openness that so many of you talked about. This is a very precious moment in our life. So as we continue as a council, keep gleaning the quotes, sharing the insight from the traditions, but never forget to share the insight that comes from your mind, your heart, and your soul. Now, by way of conclusion, if I may, Will send to you, if you don't already have it, a list of all the work and committees of the Interfaith Council. In light of the sharing today, and in light of who you are as a person, what in that work attracts you? What would you like to commit yourself to? But I'm going to ask you to do another thing. Not only simply what attracts you, but what calls you. Because I might like to do something, but I might be called to do something else, because the gift of me may be greater than what I think. So we're not simply filling slots. We're not simply doing things. We're taking the passion, the love, the respect, the openness, the genius, the vulnerability of this experience out into the world, so that the people we serve are the people we meet and the people we learn from. And we bring that story back to the table for the nourishment of us all. So what calls you? What would you like to do? And what calls you? And finally, what do you think we ought to do that we're not doing? Take us out of our box. Take us beyond the limits. Challenge us with your genius. And beware my love and respect for all of you. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you today. Be at peace.
Well, on behalf of the council, we can't thank you enough, Father Tom, for this enlightenment, actually. And you, as you say, blessing. Leonard, did you want to say something?
Yes, before the meeting adjourns, I'd like to give a shout out to Erica Baines for doing the Food for Thought program. She did a magnificent job of arranging a very complicated job. And really through her work, we helped a lot of people. And I would think we ought to pat her on the back a couple of times for that.
Absolutely. There's several people from here I know that helped. It was a wonderful experience. And next year, I hope we all can be a part of that Food for Thought program. It's quite the coordination that she puts together for the several schools. So that was truly fun.
And iCare helped for the first time this year and included new faith communities and new volunteers in all of that work. So we want to lift up all of those folks that participated in making sure that families in West County had food over the holidays through and distributed through the schools. Amelia had a thing to share too. And then other community announcements before we let Reverend Willie fill out our time.
I was just going to share a prayer on humanity with everyone that kind of encapsulates, I think, what many of us were talking about today. O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence, they are all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at thy table of bounty. All are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all, thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferst life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all, let the religions agree and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father God, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, and thou art the one who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind.
Amin, Ashe. Any other announcements before we let Reverend Willie give our closing remarks and benediction?
I would just like to say that if you have on the agenda, please, on page 5, there's more of Father Tom Bonacci's series, especially on his coping with nationalism. That's fabulous. There's some reports. Please just peruse them. I know it's a lot. It's not a normal organization that has one or two things. We have many. And if you have a chance to just peruse what's going on our 9-12 page agenda, I encourage you to do so. And there's special events in Walnut Creek for Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Please look for what's going on and go through the agenda. It's right there, and you can share your links. Okay. So closing remarks and benediction, Reverend Willie McDaniel.
Thank you. In my closing remarks, I've been asked to just share some about my faith journey, and in respect for the time, I would just say this. My faith journey has been governed by a scripture: trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not into your own understanding. Yet, at the same time, I struggle with trying to take the wheel and drive. So I'm constantly reminded that I should trust and not try on my own. I am the 7th child of 9. Grew up in northern Louisiana, went to college on a basketball scholarship. As I look back at my faith journey retrospectively, I can see at very strategic intervals where God was carrying me. And I did not realize that. So this year I celebrate 40 years of Christian ministry, 38 of those years as a pastor. That journey started in Los Angeles, went to Riverside, went to Jacksonville, Florida, to Fairfield, California, from Fairfield, California to Dallas, Texas, from Dallas, Texas to Sacramento, from Sacramento to El Cerrito. So that is the life of an itinerant minister. But in all of these things that God has allowed me to go through, I see where he kept me, where he held me, where he blessed me. I'm 2 children, married 49 years, and probably the most significant event in my life, other than marrying my high school sweetheart, was the birth of our son, because it was at that time he was born premature, and there was no one else to turn to. Even though I grew up in a Christian home, I did not know the Lord in a personal sense. And I had come to the end of all I knew how to do. So I had to turn to God, my mother's God, my father's God. I had to turn to him to save our son. The doctors told us he was born premature, that he would not live through the night. I'm thankful to God. He's 48 years old, even as I speak. But that moment was the turning point in my life where I knew that I had to turn my life over to someone who could handle it better than I. So that is that's a brief snapshot of my faith journey. So having said that, thank you for letting me share. Let's close. Lord, we thank you for the Interfaith Council. We thank you, Lord, for the commitment that we have to the communities that we serve. Now, may the good Lord shower this council with choice blessing and give each of us peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Reverend Willie. And in that beautiful blessing, and thanks for sharing about yourself. I hope you all have a wonderful week and keep in touch.
Thank you. Take care.
I'm going to thank you, Reverend Willie, for that heartfelt sharing. Here's some of our announcements that we shared at the beginning, and we'll make sure here as well. A great poem by Karen Oliver that Father Tom shared last time. We want folks to be able to see that again. We do have our Interfaith Skills series on our YouTube channel, including Diffusing Hatred program, Everyday Peacemaking program, Courageous Conversations. We encourage all of our members to go through these at least once, but they're there on YouTube so that you can go through them multiple times. And our Coping with Nationalisms program series that Father Tom did last year is available for you in your faith communities to be able to use in your education programs. Each of them are 45 to 60 minutes, and they will spark great conversation. And then, of course, do check out our YouTube channel where all of our recordings from previous meetings, Interfaith Thanksgiving services, our annual meetings, all of those recordings are there. Our next month, Meaningful Monday program, which happens on the first Monday of each month, unless there's a holiday, we'll be discussing chapters 3 and 4 of the new book. Look for this book, Sufism, A Bridge Between Religions by Nader Angha from the MTO Shamaksudi School of Islamic Sufism. And of course, if you want to join the Social Justice Alliance, you can talk to me or Dennis, or if you want to volunteer for anything, I will get you can look at our website at interfaithccc.org and go to our program page to be able to see all of our programs and ministries There's also a staff page where you can see the work of I Change and I Care and Reverend Julius Van Hook and Reverend Alexandria Spearman in Juvenile Hall. Rather than having an MLK service ourselves, we're encouraging each of you to go to differing MLK services that are going on January 16th. And if you know of any of them, please share them with me so I can add them to our website. But we'd love to have a report back at our next meeting to hear how these different groups did. There will be a Contra Costa Human Trafficking Coalition meeting on January 21st from 10 a.m. to 2:30. Reverend Maria, if you're still on, do you want to say anything about this? It's at your church on Saturday, January 21st. Maybe she's not on anymore, but anyway, it's happening that day, and it's being organized by the Contra Costa Human Trafficking Task Force, United Women in Faith of Concord UMC, and partnering members of the local faith community. If you want to be a co-sponsor, talk to Reverend Marie about that. And then, of course, I Care upcoming events. February is in West County at the Bay Area Rescue Mission, and March is in Central County at White Pony Express. Lots of interfaith events coming up on our calendar, and encourage you to find a way to be in someone else's space in the next few months, maybe even quarterly if you can. We do belong to each other, and our work is envisioning a world of interfaith peace together. Blessed be.